Zad from LUCIDPIXUL, and I am very, very excited to share with you two of my prized possessions. Elden Ring, Official Art Books, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And why are they my prized possessions? Well, if you followed my channel for any length of time, you know that I'm a diehard Souls fan. I have been for many years. But I'm also an artist and art teacher whose artistic style and teaching style has been very heavily influenced by the artistic philosophy of Hidetaka Miyazaki and the incredible artistic team at From Software. They've really defined me artistically in so many different ways that when I get my hands on something like this, I'm extremely excited. Now, these books did come out a little while ago, and it's a two-part book, but they just announced Shadow of the Erdtree expansion at the time of this. It hasn't yet released. So I'm very, very excited to share these art books with you. However, there's more, because right here, I have two personal, unopened, see, still sealed in plastic copies of Soul Arts, which are my favorite art books of all time. I did a review, you can check it out right up here. Because they, number one, were created by my favorite YouTuber of all time, VatiVidya, or Michael Samuels, and illustrated, at least the cover art here, is by one of my personal favorite artists of all time. You get a little teaser of it through the little Oculus over here, Ricardo Imig, who is an artist that inspires me endlessly, and who I've actually had a chance to meet in person as well, and he is a remarkably warm-hearted person. He's as exceptional an artist as he is a human being in real life. And I want to give away these two copies to two lucky winners. So stick around to the end and I'm going to let you know how you can enter to win your own copy. Now, there's only two, sadly. I'd love everybody to get a copy. But there's going to be one last little Easter egg for any of you Souls fans out there that's going to be very exciting for Souls fans as well. So I'm not going to let you know what it is. I want you to put on your detective eyes because you might notice little hints of it throughout the video. So let's break into this. And I'm going to do it a little bit differently than my usual book reviews because these are huge books with like each upwards to, good Lord, 430 pages on book one, and it's wall-to-wall art. There's little to no text except for basic descriptions and stuff. So I'm just going to kind of pass through these books and share my thoughts and feelings throughout as we progress through the book. And I'm just going to give you a little teaser because I don't want this video to last 16 hours long. And I want you to go to the store and buy it yourself because I'm doing this to support the artists, the book publishers, the directors who make the masterpieces that have brought me and so many of you joy. Capiche? So, and I'm just going to stop on the first page because this is something I like to share with artists. In any of my book reviews, I have a whole series of book reviews, including all of the Souls book reviews. You can check them out right over here, including Soul Arts and all that kind of fun stuff. I put my heart and soul into these book reviews. First impressions. Imagine this is a portfolio, my fellow lady or gentleman artist out there. First impressions are very, very important to directors, to future employers. You're setting an expectation, and you want that expectation to be an impressive one. But you're also setting the tone moving forward. And in this first page, Miyazaki is presenting us with the grandeur of this open world. It's the first time that From Software has dipped their toes, or in this case, did a belly flop into the open world genre. And this first page is meant to wow you and to let you know it's up ahead. And I love the fact that From Software and Miyazaki took this very Breath of the Wild type of approach to the beginning of the game, where you exit this small little cave after getting your ass handed to you by a boss, because it's a Souls game, obviously, right? And falling off a cliff. You open the world and then you see the Erdtree, which is the end game right in front of you, and this beautiful grand vista with nature and ruins and the big golden tree in the background, and a guy on horseback who kicks your ass yet again. And you feel like you can just reach out and touch it. It's like Link can almost reach out and touch Hyrule Castle, but then as you progress through the game, the closer you get, it's like a rack focus. It just goes further and further away. And it just serves to emphasize the grandeur of this. It makes it, you realize it's just so much bigger than you could have ever imagined. I can only imagine what's going to happen with Shadow of the Erdtree. Now, as an artist, you set an expectation, but then you got to keep the expectation going moving forward, right? You don't want to just set a good expectation and then kind of put some fluff in there. No, every single piece matters. And even though we have 430 pages in this book, Every page matters. Nothing is taken for granted artistically. That's why they produce such amazing work. It's because they don't take their work for granted. Now, I'm going to keep flipping through this like that, just so you can get a glimpse of it. And I'm going to stop at certain key areas. Here's some, at the beginning of book one, by the way, it's a little bit more cinematics, and then it's more environments moving forward after that. Book two focuses more on character and creature design and bosses and stuff like that. Depending on your personal preference, my opinion is buy them both. They're both magnificent. In this, I love stopping on this page because this shines a highlight on something about Miyazaki's expression artistically that sets From Software apart from a lot of other things. And as I want you to just kind of glimpse at this for a second before I keep flipping through. It might be hard to see, but there's this, we're in this kind of catacomb, and there's these crypts here in the middle that run down the middle. And there's all of these gravestones. I can't know, like the gravestones of, like, you can see like the actual little carvings of soldiers and fallen ones. But there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these bodies kind of lying around, these gravestones. But the artist just put a highlight at both ends to allow your eye to travel back and forth between these two different spots, with the deity over here kind of looking over all the bodies. Just from a narrative perspective, I think that's very beautiful. But notice that despite all of this incredible work, the artist is not shining a big spotlight and saying, look what I did. In fact, the hardest work in this piece is hiding in shadow. The same applies to lore. The same applies to design. The same applies to the whole artistic philosophy. He doesn't take his audience's imagination for granted. And as I flip, I want to talk about a little theory of mine when it comes to Miyazaki's work, because I've watched hundreds of Souls lore videos by Vati and Zuli the Witch and Illusory Wall and all of these different creators over the years. Look at a piece like the remake of Demon's Souls, and I'm skipping kind of chunks of 10 pages at a time, so I'm not doing that page by page. This scene reminds me of something in Vati videos. He does like a little playthrough of this area of the game. If you look at the way Bluepoint recreated Demon's Souls, the original Demon's Souls, they objectively created something gorgeous. Gorgeous. And to any Souls fan, as far as like the level placement and the characters and the stories and everything that was created, they really respected the source material, but updated it, revamped it, added, facial animations and character animations and updated graphics and effects and all that kind of stuff. And as an accomplishment and as a piece of art respecting the original vision of From Software, I think they did the best job imaginable. But despite that, to any true Souls fans who've been around since the very, very early beginnings of Souls games, most people will express there's some mood, there's some nostalgia, there's some secret Souls vibe, some mood that I can't describe, that From Software, this secret recipe that From Software has that make their work so evocative and so moving emotionally. And I argue on many, many different levels that this has to do with what's not said. A lot of people question why only the blacksmith has lip syncing animation through a lot of the Souls series, but all the other NPCs don't. Almost every character and creature in all of the Souls games, maybe with the exception of Sekiro and Armored Core, of course, they're very nondescript. Even the hunter from Bloodborne, he's very nondescript. He's got this kind of skinny little nondescript face, and the creatures are completely faceless, and that they don't lip sync, that they just kind of sit there in some pose, and there's this ghostly, echoey voice throughout the Firelink Shrine or wherever it is that you're visiting. Notice that? And to me, the reason being is, and this is one of the things that ties into my personal artistic philosophy, is it overhumanizes them. And by overhumanizing somebody, you are giving away too much of that character. You're forcing the idea down a person's throat. And one of the things that I've always liked, in fact, Souls lore and Souls videos, I mean, Vati Video is a perfect example of this, is predicated on what's not said. That Miyazaki truly, deeply respects the imagination of his audience and doesn't spoon feed them every little bit of lore, doesn't force the intention of all the hard work and their artistry, does not force the character the character's character down your throat, what he's essentially doing is almost making them ghosts. They could be memories. We could be experiencing images past. And one of the things, I don't know about you, but one of my personal favorite moments in the entire Elden Ring series to date, not including the expansion, of course, is far into the game. You're well advanced into the game. You go down this little dusty hill and you walk in through this door, very nondescript, very unassuming, and you walk in, and after a moment of kind of looking around in this dark little abandoned house or whatever it is you enter into, you realize, I'm in the Round Table Hold. This is the Round Table Hold, but it's abandoned. All the lights are off. There's no NPCs in there, except for one ghost that invades you at a certain point. That to me is one of my favorite moments, because it's like, was the Round Table Hold? Was I traveling into the past? What was I experiencing? What's this all about? And you're walking through, and the staircase is broken, and there's nothing around. Everything's kind of completely abandoned. The lights are off. I have always loved abandoned places. There's something incredibly historical and something powerful about that. But it's making you question everything. Like, what did I actually experience? But he doesn't tell you. He doesn't explain it to you. He just kind of serves you this experience, this mood, and you're left to take it in the way you do. And if you think about it, all of the greatest artistic experiences in my personal life were always a result of walking into some abandoned location, making some discovery on my own, and being fascinated by that. And as we've been scouring through these different pages, hopefully you've been taking note of the fact that every single location we've explored, indoors or outdoors, have all been abandoned, all broken down, torn, decrepit, dusty, overgrown. Says something, doesn't it? Now, let's have a quick look at book 2. Trying not to make this video extremely long. I'm doing my best. I apologize. I'm very interested. I find it very curious that Miyazaki introduces us to the concept of rot. And this, to me, just kind of looking at the colors of this page and the color that from software and the artistic directors and artists decided on for this corruption, for this decay, is the color of disease. And if you think about that, that's one of the things that humans fear. If you're thinking horror and you're thinking of dark fantasy, what colors are these reminiscent of emotionally? Well, arguably, they're things that are very unpleasant to humanity. This looks to me like a combination of the colors of blood and infection and phlegm, right? Or mucus. When you've got a really bad cold, you've got COVID, and you've just it's disgusting. It makes you cringe, doesn't it? But that's the whole idea, that these artists were driven by emotional use of colors, emotional use of design, emotional use of line. And let's go back and look at Godric the Grafted. I love this piece. From an artistic perspective, I'm very much conscious at this phase in my artistic career and how I teach artistically, depending on who I'm communicating with, depending on who I'm teaching. The artistic approach to this, these are very straight ahead type of drawings. There's a lot of impulsivity. There's a lot of unpredictability in this line. I coined the phrase, I kind of stole it from animation, straight ahead drawing. And I stole that phrase from classical animation, where you look at straight ahead versus pose to pose animation. If you've ever read Richard Williams' Animator's Survival Kit, which is a mandatory read for artists, and I taught this to my animation students as well, they all read it as well, that if you draw with a structured approach, pose to pose, key animation, your animation will read better. It'll have better structure to it. There'll be more punch to those key moments. But it can lack a lot of artistic and creative spontaneity, says Richard Williams. But if you do straight ahead animation, it's very spontaneous. You just start at frame 1 and you just do 2, 3, 4 in sequence. And where you end up can very often be very unpredictable. If you look at a lot of the works that weren't rotoscopied overly by Don Bluth, you get very good examples of that kind of animation. You have to find that sweet spot between the two. You have to have enough of a technical solidity a structure to your drawings, but not so much to the point where it stunts your ability to just to allow that brain to hand connection flow fluidly. And if you look at a lot of my drawings, if you watch any of my painting processes, note the very early beginning of my drawing when I'm first starting a sketch. You're going to notice how I tend to try to do my best to draw the entire drawing with a single line. I'm going to stop here on the living jar, of course, because they are our beloved. And it just goes to show the artistic direction and the incredible voice acting that you could care so dearly for a jar character, the noble jar. And my heart still breaks to them. But in the little jar village, little sweet little jars, they just want to live their life, and every now and then they want to be heroes, but every now and then one of them cracks, so to speak. And that there's this beautiful story arch with I can't remember what his name is, who is too much of a softie to be a warrior, but that the jars loved him because he had delicate hands. So he couldn't be a warrior, but they loved him as a jar handler. Oh God, what a lovely, heartwarming story. I think this is absolutely fantastic. So that's it. That's it. That's all I'm going to share with you. However, Soul Arts, my beloved, cherished Soul Arts book. To enter to win, I want you to let me know what your favorite Souls game is, and or what your favorite Souls game or your wish list Souls game moving forward. And I will pick 2 people at random to win your own copy, unopened, sealed copies of Soul Arts by Michael Vatividya Samuels. I'm very excited to share my passion for these books with you. And have you been paying close attention throughout the video? Because there's one last little Easter egg, as I promised, for Souls fans. It's been hiding around my neck this entire time, and it might be hard to see at a distance. This is a sterling silver handcrafted recreation of the helmet and gauntlet, absolutely exquisite and hefty as well, of Sir Gideon Ofnir. One of my 2 favorite character designs in the entire series of Elden Ring. I am absolutely smitten by this piece, and this was made by hand by Serpent Forge. They reached out to me a little while back and asked me if I would love to present their work, knowing, number one, what a big fan I am of jewelry, of silver jewelry, and Souls. He's a fellow Souls fan, just like the rest of us. And, well, honest to goodness, when I found out what he did, I jumped at the occasion. And he's already, if you look at his collection, I'll link everything below. If you look at his collection, he's also got one of Millennia, and there's more to come. So if you're a Souls fan, I recommend you can leave a comment below letting us know and letting them know at Serpent Forge what character or creature you'd love created in a beautiful ring or pendant yourself. And rest assured, this is one of the most beautiful works of handcrafting silverwork I've ever seen in my entire life, and I haven't taken this off. All of my students who have seen me have seen me wearing this because I've been showing it off to everybody. This is another one of my personal prized possessions, so you can go and check it out in the description below as well. Sound good? With that said, I'm going to stop it there because I could go on about this forever, but thank you so much. Remember, leave a comment if you want to win your chance of winning the book. Go and check out the link to Serpent Forge and their beautiful handcrafted silver jewelry below, and happy shopping. Take care.